Good evening and welcome into Live from the Plains. My name is Daniel Locke. This is Logan Fowler. We are both freshly back in Auburn after Thanksgiving break and the Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa. Had a great time. Um, my break was good. My Thanksgiving was good. How was yours?
It's pretty good. Definitely a much needed break and time away from here. Um, good to spend a little time with the family and you know got to end it with a little bit of football. So can't complain too much, man. Got 2 more weeks. Got to grind it out. We can do this.
Yeah, and this next week for me right here is going to be every bit of a grind.
Hmm.
So yeah, we're gonna get through it. But man, I was looking at it before I drove back today, and I was like, man, it's a good thing I have tonight to relax. Other than obviously recording the show,
Yeah.
because I'll hit the ground running tomorrow.
Yep.
But
Busy week.
yeah, Auburn's football season has come to an end with yesterday's 28-14 loss against the Alabama Crimson Tide. One that Auburn had multiple chances to take over and just didn't.
Yeah.
Um, Alabama didn't win this one at all. Auburn lost it because you don't win a game by turning the ball over four times.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, Alabama did played a pretty solid game. Jalen Milrow had a pretty good day. Had over 100 yards rushing. Threw for 256. So I mean, he was productive. The good Milrow definitely showed up yesterday. Um, and it was a problem at times for Auburn's defense. But like you said, Auburn they forced 4 turnovers. Um, and they obviously had 2 turnovers of their own, but before they even committed their first turnover, they were still +4 in the turnover margin and down by 2 scores. Just obviously the story in this one for Auburn is the missed opportunities in the red zone, and third down defense was atrocious for Auburn as well. And it feels if there's one knock that you can have on this defense this year, uh, it's third down defense getting off the field, especially on those third and longs. So I think in the first half, let me go back and look real quick. Um, in the first half, Alabama, Alabama had 6 third down conversions in the first half with an average distance of 7 yards to gain on those 6 attempts.
That's pretty bad.
So yeah, and it, obviously every time they got the red zone, they scored out of it, and then Auburn Auburn didn't score a single time in the red zone. Their long touchdown came from, or they didn't score a touchdown in the red zone. Um, their long touchdown of the day came on a 29-yard shot to Cam Coleman. Um, so yeah, like you said, man. I mean, they definitely had chance after chance to win it. I definitely thought that kind of early on. I think it might have even been in the first quarter, but I know it was for sure. Um, Actually, it was the end of the first quarter, heading into the second, because I remember tweeting out, coming out of this break, I think Auburn's got to take the points, and that was when Auburn got down into the red zone. It was a 4th and 4 coming out of, or at the end of the first quarter. They came out of the break, heading into the second quarter. Freeze opted to go for it. I don't, I mean, I don't hate it, but I think I said, I was like, in this game right now, I think I'm taking the points. And then Auburn obviously doesn't even convert on the fourth down conversion. So
Yeah,
um, I feel like that kind of set the tone a little bit. And then obviously the debacle right there before halftime. Um, Defense forces a turnover on the plus side of the field. They move it up all the way to the 2 yard line. Fresh set of downs. Uh, Thorne misses KLS in the back of the end zone. They go backwards on the next play, and then they have 2 tries to get 2 yards, and they just can't do it. So, I mean, that's that's the summary of how Auburn's day went.
Yeah, and a lot of the problems for Auburn were reoccurring problems for the team this season. Like you said, inability to get off the field on third down, struggling in the red zone. Not so much turnovers, but that's something that Auburn really cleaned up down the stretch. But yeah, just really a fitting end to the season, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean,
Losing a very, very winnable game.
absolutely. Like I said, I mean, obviously Milrow, the good Milrow showed up, but really outside of him, um, I mean, I'm not very good at the quick math here, but 300, yeah, I mean, 360 yards out of 457, Milrow accounted for with both his arm and his legs. Connected with Jeremy Bernard a couple times. He went over 100 yards receiving. Ryan Williams was honestly, I mean, he had 53 yards on 3 catches, but Auburn for the most part kind of shut him down. He was one of the guys that turned the ball over, dropped the would be touchdown. Um, so they limited that connection there between Milrow and Ryan Williams. Offensively for Auburn, man, no problem moving the ball inside the 20. Um, well, from 20 to 20. Uh, I mean, Auburn's offense moved it at will, and that's the thing. All year they've not had trouble moving the ball. Um, was from 20-yard line to 20-yard line. It's been the red zone struggles for Auburn this year. They're in the latter half of the FBS in red zone. I know it's over 100 out of 132 that they rank. I don't know it off the top of my head. But yeah, so I mean Peyton Thorne, pretty solid day, I would say, honestly. I mean,
Yeah,
he had a pretty good day. Um, Goes over 300 yards through the air, 41 attempts. I mean, wow. If you would have told me um, that he was going to throw the ball 41 times, I said you're crazy. Jarquez Hunter gets 13 attempts, had runs of 21 yards and 19 um, there in the first half. But after that, people all over Twitter and social media were clamoring about or bickering about Jarquez Hunter not getting enough touches. But like I said, there in the first quarter, he had runs of 21 yards and 19 yards. After that, um, he went. His longest run was for 5 yards. He had three rushes that went backwards. So I mean, um, Alabama was selling out to stop the run. So I mean, I understand. I think Auburn probably abandoned Jarquez Hunter too early in that game. Um, but at the same time, Alabama they weren't giving anything up in between the tackles. I mean, Jarquez Hunter was having a fight for what he got, and I mean, you just like I said, you can't really blame this one a whole lot on Peyton Thorne. Couple of plays you look at, and you're probably like, man, you got to make that. Um, but outside of that, I mean, I think it was a pretty solid day. Just got to obviously capitalize when you get in the red zone.
yeah. And they couldn't, and that's why their season came to an end. 5-7, far away from where people thought this team would be, even further away from where it really could have been.
Yeah,
Um, this
you know,
team easily could have been a 10-2 team.
absolutely, absolutely. You probably take a handful of plays out of this season, and they're a 9-3, 10-2 team. If you would have told me before the year that Peyton Thorne was going to be 300 yards shy of 3,000 on the season, Jarquez Hunter was going to go for over 1,000 yards, and then Auburn was going to have a near 1,000 yard receiver. Keandre Lambert Smith, by the way, was 19 yards short of the 1,000 yard mark to make him the third receiver in program history to go over that 1,000-yard mark. So that really stinks. But if you would have told me those three things, Peyton Thorne goes for almost 3,000, Jarquez goes for over 1,000, and Auburn has a receiver that's almost at 1,000, I would have told you, oh yeah, they're winning. They're winning. 8 to 10 games easily. Um, but it's just not the case. It's just it's kind of honestly us just breathtaking at the fact of how that could happen. Yet they have their fourth straight 7-loss season.
Yeah, and
Four straight.
yeah, four straight losing seasons. Failed to be bowl eligible for the second season in the last 3 years. Just, I know it's been beat to death, but this is just not a good era for Auburn football.
It's not. It's one of the worst stretches. I've seen a couple of different statistics thrown out there that it's the worst stretch from 46 to 50, and then back from 27 to 30, 1927 to 30. So either way, that's still horrible. Um, but and I did a story on this earlier today. Um, you know, while the while you look at this season, and like we've both just said, there's probably a handful of plays you make and you're, a 9 or 10 win team. Um, you're sitting at 5 losses, obviously your fourth straight losing season, but you have to be somewhat optimistic about the guys on the roster, the young talent on the roster. Um, I mean, defensively, if you're Hugh Freeze and DJ Durkin, you're excited about those guys. Caleb Harris, Jay Crawford, Kinsley Lador Faustin. Um, I know I'm missing just off the top of Malik Block and the Marcus Riddick. Just a bunch of guys who got a lot of playing time, and then obviously you've still got guys like Jamonta Waller, Joe Phillips, DJ Barber, those type of guys, full of talent, and they put it on display this year. Auburn top 25 defense nationally, um, led the led the nation in snaps played by freshmen. Obviously, offensively, you had Cam Coleman um, and Malcolm Simmons. They're just uh, two of the best single season uh, receiving single. Good grief. Two of the best receiving seasons by freshmen in program history. Uh, Cam was, let's see, he's third on the list, and Malcolm is fifth. I'd have to go find the yardage total. Anyway, um, got to be excited about the young talent that's still there on the roster. So there's some positives you can take away from it for sure. Um, but obviously, if you're looking at it, and I hate to beat the dead horse. Um, to me, man, Auburn got out coached on the field in every single loss.
Yeah.
Every single loss was more so coaching, in my opinion, than anything else. Yes, there were some execution errors. Yes, there were plays that weren't made in critical moments. Um, but when it comes down to it, like I just said, there's a coach on the other side trying to beat you, scheme against you, um, and I feel like Auburn got out schemed and out coached just about every week.
Yeah, which really kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the press box yesterday before the game, after we saw that Michigan had beaten Ohio State. And if Ryan Day comes available, and we'll talk about this more at a later time, but if Ryan Day becomes available and you're John Cohen, in my opinion, you've got to find a way to make that happen. Um, is it the most? Is it the best way to replace a coach? Probably not.
Are you talking about
Uh,
for head coach
yes.
at the end
Yeah.
of this season?
Mm-hmm. If Ohio State is dumb enough to part ways with Ryan Day, you've got to go get him. And maybe if you get Ryan Day in here, the Auburn coach will do more than talk about how hard his job that he gets paid $6.5 million to do is. I'm going to stop before I, go too far on that. But yeah, you couldn't pass that opportunity up, in my opinion. But we'll talk about that more at a later time. Also, probably a show in the near future. We'll have more organized final season thoughts. Well, obviously, National Signing Day to talk about very soon. So, plenty of football content still to come. And
Yes, speaking of football content to come, we're recording this on a Sunday. I'm assuming this is going to come out on a Monday morning. So there could still be news come out before our Pretty Little Eyes even open in the morning. But two guys entered the portal today, or announced their decision to enter the portal, which opens on December the 9th. That's Holden Gerner. That one was expected. And then Mike O'Reilly also announced that he will be entering the portal. If you saw reports of Hank Brown entering the portal, those are false. He shot those down himself. Doesn't mean that he won't enter the portal. It just means that as of right now, he is still a part of Auburn's roster and plans to be here for next season. So
yeah,
plenty of news going to come out on that front in the coming days. Still lots of guys out there that I would expect to announce their decisions here soon. And then obviously, like Daniel said, we've got signing day coming up Wednesday. Neither one of us are recruiting insiders or cover recruiting, but we'll have a little bit of content. I'm sure you'll have some written content. I'll have some, and I'm sure we can get a show out of that. And maybe when Christian or Caleb or somebody gets time to settle down after it's a big week for those guys, man. They've got high school, the Super 7 this week, and then early signing day for a 3-day period. So that's they're going to be super busy this week, but obviously we'll have some content from that as well. But I guess kind of just to end, like you said, maybe have another show with some more final thoughts, kind of more in depth, but not really any other way to put it than a very disappointing season for Hugh Freeze and for Auburn. And while it was disappointing, I do think that there, were times throughout the year where you saw an improved team from a season ago at times. I still think that there's just too many instances in where, a coaching issue, it's an obvious coaching issue that's losing Auburn games. So, yeah, disappointing season, but you know what? Is finally it's finally official, and that would be that it is basketball season. And I guess that will transition us right into the talk here about Auburn and their trip to Maui.
yeah. The Tigers proved that they are as advertised. Went out to compete in the Maui Gym Invitational. Um, Probably the most prestigious early season college basketball tournament, and they got it done. And they won the whole thing, just the third SEC team to do so ever, behind Kentucky and Vanderbilt. And had a little scare against Iowa State, but stormed back in the second half, picked up a top 5 win, handled business against UNC, didn't let them lead, top 15 win, and then beat Memphis in the final on Wednesday. Memphis is a receiving votes team in the AP poll, so pretty close to being a ranked win.
They were red hot, yeah.
Yeah, and Auburn, once again, never let them lead. So just a dominant 3 days out in Maui. And that comes at a perfect time as Auburn is about to play what I think is the toughest regular season matchup that this program has had I'm struggling to think of one that would be harder than taking on a top 10 Duke team on the road.
Right.
I
That's
I really don't think there is one.
I don't think you can think of one in recent history. Uh,
No,
I mean, they did play Duke a couple years ago in the Maui Invitational, actually, in 2019. So I guess if you want to count
right, but
that
you're
way,
thousands of miles away from Durham as opposed to in Durham with the Cameron Grazies, which is well, don't get me wrong. What goes on at Neville Arena these days is awesome, but that Duke, that's another level.
that is true. They did play against the three-headed monster in Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, and oh gosh, what's his name?
Cam Reddish.
Reddish that year. So probably a little bit tougher team that they played a couple years ago. But like you said, traveling to Durham, playing Cameron Indoor Stadium, that's going to be electric. It's iconic. Um, so that's going to be tough. Like you said, though, Maui Invitational. I mean, that's a pretty tough stretch right there. That's about as impressive a 3-day display, or let me word it this way: about as impressive a stretch of basketball you'll see by a team. I mean, yeah, Auburn. I saw actually Jason Caldwell on Twitter talking about this. Um, he said if Auburn can pull this off against Memphis, this is going to be just about as impressive a feat as you'll ever see. Somebody commented back and said, "You act like Auburn didn't take down Kansas, North Carolina, and Kentucky on their way to the Final Four in 2019." He said, "Yeah, but did they do that in 3 days? Um,
Exactly.
thousands of miles away? No." So for them to be able to turn around, um, like you mentioned, tough game against Iowa State. That was the top five team um, that they got down to by 18 points um, there in the first half, and then marched their way back to a buzzer beater win um, and dominated in the second half. Obviously, Chad Baker Mazara in that game was huge. Goes out within the first 7 minutes with a knee injury, um, comes back out and shows his grit, shows his toughness, and he takes that game over. You know, yeah, Janai Broom, obviously another double double, 20 points in that game. Um, but Chad Baker, he was the spark for the Tigers there in that game, and then yeah, handed it to North Carolina. That was a game that I thought could be super super tough for Auburn. Sorry, right after that tough one against Iowa State. Again, you get um, Janai Broom, just a man amongst children. The whole tournament, obviously, one tournament MVP. Um, and was it that was the game in which he had a career high 19 or tied his career high 19 boards to go along with his 20 plus points. So huge showing for him there, and then he follows it right back up on uh, on Wednesday evening with another 21 point, 16 rebound performance, and he made a strong argument for the Naismith Award uh, last week. Uh, might not be a better player in college basketball right now. Probably not the flashiest guy on the court, um, but he gets the job done. I mean, he's consistently putting up 20 and 10 plus on the boards. Um, but as good as he was, he didn't do it by himself. And I know in two of the three games they had at least four double-digit scores.
Yeah.
Um, Dylan Cardwell in the game against Memphis. What a night for him! A career high 18 points, shot 8 from 8 from the field. Um, him and Janai Broom took that one over. And then, also in that Memphis game, their defense I don't think is getting talked about enough. Auburn's. Uh, Top 5 in defensive efficiency according to Ken Palm. Only allowed 2 opponents over 70 points this year, and that was Iowa State. And wait, that might have been it. I know they let Iowa State get over it. They might have let North Carolina. I don't remember that score off the top of my head. Do you? I know it
No.
wasn't by much, if they did, but yeah, they get after it on the defensive side of the floor. They held Tyrese Hunter, Memphis's leading scorer. They held him in check. He was averaging, let's see here. I think it was like 17 points after kind of behind PJ Haggerty. He was averaging 20. And Haggerty went off. He scored 27 against Auburn. But then Tyrese Hunter only scored 11. And he was, every one of those came in the second half. So defensively, man, Auburn gets after it. They're a tough defensive matchup. And then obviously you got Janai Broome. When you run your offense through him on the other end, you can try to take him on one. He's going to beat you. You can double team him, and then he's going to pass out of it. And Auburn's got playmakers at every spot on the floor. So it's a dangerous team. They're obviously probably the hottest team in basketball right now. I'll be interested to see if they get the number 1 spot in the AP poll that drops tomorrow or
I'm
today.
interested in that too. I don't think they will though,
Mhm.
just because Kansas really didn't do anything to lose it. If Kansas had dropped the game this week, I think it'd be a no doubter. However, if Auburn can go up to Durham and pull this off Wednesday night, and then avoid a letdown against Richmond
Mhm.
on Sunday, because you never know. I don't know what kind of team Richmond is, but you never know. But so if Auburn can get it done Wednesday and then just do what they need to do against Richmond, I think come next Monday, it'll be like how that Kentucky game was in the 2022 season. That's what they needed to do to get over that. Like, okay, this team's for real.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll come in at the number 2 spot tomorrow or today. Uh, uh, yeah, like you said, Kansas didn't really do much to lose that number 1 spot. They actually beat Duke, um, so I think they're kind of deserving right now. But I mean, that doesn't take away from the fact that Auburn's the hottest team in basketball right now, and probably has the best resume in all of basketball right now. I don't even think that's really up for debate.
No.
Um, But yeah, tough trip coming up to Durham on Wednesday for Auburn, 8:15 Central Time tip off. We will not be in attendance, unfortunately. So we'll be getting that one from the house. Yeah, obviously, you're going up against if they're not gonna be a top 10, definitely a top 15 Duke team. Because yeah, obviously they lost to Kansas last week, so I'll how that see how that goes. Did they drop the game to Kentucky earlier this year? Or did they pull that one off?
I think. I think.
I know they have a loss already before the Kansas loss. Hold on, let me look.
I think they did lose to Kentucky.
Yep, they lost 77-72. So I thought they did. Yeah, you could. This is a young Duke team. Obviously, they're led by Cooper Flagg, who is, I mean, he's a hooper, man. That guy is a baller, flashy. He can do it all. Um, But I know in that Kentucky loss, it was kind of him that the wagons fell off at the end uh, with a couple late turnovers there. So, if Auburn continues to play, you know, defense at a very high level, I'd be interested to see, who do they throw out there on Cooper Flag? Chaney Johnson's probably, in my opinion, your best matchup. I mean, Cooper Flag's a pretty tall, lengthy guy who moves just about as well as anybody on the court. So, I don't think that that you're going to throw Broom at him. Mike could throw a CBM or a Miles Kelly, depending on the height advantage that Flag has on him or on them.
If you would have asked me before the Houston game, I would have said Ja'Kai Howard. But Ja'Kai Howard, along with Jaheim Hudson, just haven't really. I think they've only appeared in one game since then.
Yeah. So I think he's. I just looked up his height. He's 6'9". So obviously he's going to play that 3 or 4 spot. And that's I don't know who you throw at him. Do you throw Broom at him and kind of risk Broom getting in foul trouble because he can't keep up with him? It's like speed wise, or do you throw a guy like Cheney at him? I
I
think
think
Cheney.
that's where you start.
Yeah, I think Cheney's probably your best bet.
And if that doesn't go according to plan, I think you try CBM and then you try Broom.
Right. I mean,
Because
this is
I agree. Auburn needs Janai Broom to win this game. I don't think that's necessarily going to be true for this team most games, but this isn't most games.
yeah,
Like I said, this is. I'll say it now. I think that this is the hardest game on the schedule this year. And to be honest with you, the only thing that's going to even come close is Alabama and Tuscaloosa.
yeah,
So you absolutely cannot afford for Janai Broom to get into foul trouble.
no,
Um,
no.
so that's why I say putting him on Cooper Flag is last resort.
Right, and this is obviously we talk to Bruce tomorrow evening, or this evening if you're listening. This comes out on Monday, whatever. So obviously that's something we can ask him about, and I'm sure he'll probably talk about it in his opening remarks. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of good stuff coming from Bruce tomorrow. Hadn't talked to him in over a week before they took off for Maui, so it'd be interesting to get a little preview of that game. Going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it. Like Logan said, we unfortunately won't be on site, which is, a little disappointing. But with everything that I've got going on this week, it's probably for the best.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Daniel J. Locke. You can check out my written work at Auburn Tigers on SI.com. And Logan's got some stuff going on as well, isn't that right, Logan?
That's right. Always got something going on. If I'm at written work there with 1819 News, football coming to an end, probably not as much football content going to be coming out, just a little bit here and there, obviously throughout the week with the signing day and portal stuff. And then also with the Auburn Plainsmen. You can give me a follow on X or Twitter at Logan F. Fowler.
There you go. Logan's always got these interesting stats he tweets during games. I typically retweet them.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's going to wrap us up here for tonight. But thank you for listening to Live from the Plains, and we will speak with you again soon.